So I've been dating French men for over a month now, and I decided to do a little debrief on everything that I've learned. Now, this can't necessarily be generalized to all French men. You know what I mean? This is just based on my experience having been here dating over the last month. Cool? Okay, let's go. This says cultural research, or, my Paris dating dissertation. Yeah. Paris learning number 1. You have to get comfortable asking these men where they live. And I know that sounds weird because it's not really something you'd ask in the US, but here, asking what arrondissement or neighborhood they live in Paris proper matters because it also dictates their commute, like how long it's going to take them to commute into the city, which I find the longer their commute is, the less intentional they often are because they have to commute in literally like 45 minutes to an hour to get into the city. And then number 2, it also kind of dictates their financial stability because Paris proper is so expensive, you guys. A lot of times if he's living like far out of the city with a roommate, I learned this from Mr. Matcha, from dealing with Mr. Matcha. Like they'll say, I'm looking to settle down, I'm looking to get married. But if you're living way out in the boonies with a roommate, are you really ready to settle down? Are you really though? Like, I don't know. A lot of times they're just looking for a roommate, a warm body to help go 50-50 with them for their light bill. You feel me? That's what I've learned. I'm a little jaded, but that's what I've learned. So I tend to try to date in Paris proper. There's a few like suburbs that are definitely very, very rich for sure. So you can't necessarily extrapolate this to everybody. But in general, I'm like, what arrondissement do you live in? Which one? 1 through 20. 2, I have found that the men that I match with on Hinge are very different than the men that I match with on Bumble. Like 2 completely different species. For Hinge, I'm matching with a lot younger of men. I mean, not a lot younger, but like 27, 28. They moved to Paris in their 20s. They're still kind of finding their way through life. We a lot of times have very similar interests in music and sports and things like that. But they're generally not as financially stable as the men that I'm meeting on Bumble. And for Bumble, that's a lot more like silver foxes, born and raised in France. They're kind of in their second era of life, having been divorced or, like had their first life with their ex-wife and their kids. And now they're looking for that next stage. You feel me? Like it's a lot different. And I have found that they're a lot more times calmer and very clear about what they want, if that makes sense. Whereas like Hinge is just like vibes. Number 3, the learning is still that men are the same everywhere. I think a lot of women wanted to hold on to hope that like, oh, it's just American men that we're struggling with. No, men are the same everywhere. They're still going to be like, are you free today? Can I see you, this evening? Can I see you in 2 hours? Like they love to just pull that out of a hat. So annoying. They're still asking you on low effort dates. Come with me. I had a guy asked me to come with him to a sports bar the other day to watch his home country play for our first date. I was like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like they're still doing the same things a lot of American men do. So I don't want y'all thinking like, oh my God, French men are so much. Like, no, the low effort stuff is still happening here for sure. Of course, you still have the men that will, what are you doing you all day long? What are you doing? Ça va bien. Leave me alone. If you're not going to ask me out on a date, leave me alone. Please. Damn. Ugh. So what I have learned is that the accent changes the behavior. It does not. In general, with a date, I would, have a guy like plan the whole thing from beginning to end. But what I have found in France specifically, because I'm not that big a fan of French food, I try to help them out by letting them know I like Italian, I like Indian, I like, Caribbean, whatever that might be. Because I feel like the French do really well at breakfast and they do really well at dessert. Like I'll fuck an omelet up. Okay. I'll eat an apple tart all day. I love a croissant. You know what I mean? They're so good at baked things. But everything in between breakfast and dessert, it's just noise. I can't do it. So one really big thing for me is just letting men know ahead of time what type of food I like. And that's also because most times men will be disappointing. But your food doesn't have to be disappointing, Like the worst thing is having a shitty date and shitty food. At least you can control the first one. I've had some really good Thai food here. I've had some really good Vietnamese food, really good African food. Like, you don't have to struggle in the food department. You will continue to struggle in the male department. I'll let you know that right now. Learning number 5, your experience dating here will oftentimes depend on the amount of time that you're here. I found that like when I first got here, there was tons of effort because you're new, you're naive, you're excitable, like everyone's flocking to you, you know what I mean? And then there's this middle area where it's like crickets and ghosting and we should hang out soon energy, but nobody's following through. And then when you get to your like last 2 weeks here, there's all of a sudden this like sudden urgency, like, oh my God, you only have 2 weeks left. I need to see you. Men love a deadline. Men love a deadline. They lack intention, so they love a deadline to give them that fake sense of urgency when you could have been hanging out with me this whole entire time. But hey, also to say, like, one of the things that my friends who live here also said that, like, dating when you're visiting versus dating when you actually move here is totally different. Men also love, like, to court you for short periods of time. Like if you're only here for, a month or two, like I am, they'll put in all this energy and effort and it'll look totally different once you actually move here. Crickets, gone. Like they love to put in effort for that short period of time. And then it looks totally different when you're like, hey, I moved. It's like all of a sudden like, oh, so it'll also look different if you actually decide to like move here. Number 6, you need to decide what you want before you get here. I came in saying like, I'm just open to a strong connection and whatever happens. I don't really know that was the best way to go about it. What I think might work better is if you like have an idea of like, I want, something consistent for my vacation, like a vacation fling, or I want a long-term lover every time I come to Paris, or, you're looking for something serious. I think a lot of Frenchmen actually do prefer you to tell them what you are looking for. I've gotten that question several times of like, okay, you don't live here. What is it that you're looking for? So have that idea in your head ahead of time. Don't like bend to men's will based on what they want. Come in knowing. And I think another piece to add that's very similar to the US is men will still very much take anything you give them here. As much as they're like, oh, I'd love for you to just kind of like let me know what you want, they will still take anything. Like the number of profiles that I've seen on Hinge that are literally like, I'll take monogamy, non-monogamy, life partner, and figuring out my dating goals. How do you have all 4 of those in your profile? Like it doesn't make any sense. It's like, sir, you don't know what you want, but you want me? Yeah, okay. Okay, so they'll still take anything here. Literally anything. Number 7, a lot of the men that I have dated are atheists. And I just mean that in terms of men that I've gone on dates with. I don't know that I could seriously date an atheist man just because my faith is very important to me, but I really was surprised by the number of atheist men that I matched with, just because I come from, the Bible Belt. So I'm used to like the baseline being Christianity coming from Texas. And also like Paris is filled with churches. Like there's churches everywhere. So I guess I was very surprised that was the case. And I think it's really important for you to decide, like, does this matter to you, or is it something you want to discuss before your first date? If you're looking for something serious, I think it's important to decide, like, is that a deal breaker for you? But it may not be if you're just dating casually. Something to note, because I was very surprised by that, and my friends confirmed it as well, too. Number 8, December is not a good time to date. Like, I think Anwar definitely said that from, like, an American point of view. Like, the type of matches that you'll get in the US during December, during the end of Q4, are just like the bottom of the barrel people. Like a lot of the men that are actually about their business are not really dating in December. They're like closing out the year. I don't think that's necessarily the same here in France, just because work is not as big a deal here, in my opinion. Like, the French, they don't be working. They don't be working. But I will say it does give very, like, holiday break vibes, like that time period between Christmas and New Year's where you barely even know what day it is. Like, it very much gives that. And they're trying to kind of just like recover and end the year. So the last thing they're really trying to do is like be intentional and like take you out to dinner and like intentionally date you, when they're just kind of like in this weird la period before the year ends. So I don't really recommend December for dating in Paris. Paris is magical in December. Dating is not. I will also say dating is much more like racially and ethnically mixed here. It's something that I noticed immediately. Like, Black women are dating white men, white women are dating Black men. It's just normal. Like, it's very, very mixed culturally. There isn't that, like, I think, weird undertone that exists in the US when like people of color date non-people of color. I don't need to explain the transatlantic slave trade to you. We don't have to get into that, but obviously like that same undertone doesn't exist here. So it's a lot more popular to see, like, I feel like, racially mixed couples here. More power to them. Per. And you know, I might be one of them. I might be one of them too. You get me? As far as the type of dates, this is number 10. I think dessert dates are elite. I don't think they have the same like low effort connotations that like a coffee date has. Because at least with dessert dates, you're like consuming food, and French desserts are so good. Like, I love me an apple tart. I love me apple tart. So I've been very into dessert dates lately. And that's also because my French isn't great. So I've matched with a few guys where it's like my French is just so low and their English is also so low. We could barely communicate outside of Google Translate. And so that just doesn't really make sense. So if our communication is bad, you're not stuck in a dinner for 3 hours, especially since French meal service is intentionally slow. They don't want to rush you. They want your food to digest. It's not about throughput and just getting as many people in these seats as possible. It's about a 3-hour meal service. So that's very uncomfortable when you guys can't communicate. So I think a first date, a great first date, is just a little dessert date at a local bakery or at a restaurant that has a great dessert menu. You know what I mean? Vibes. Very last thing that I think has been interesting to learn is about French women through the eyes of French men. I think it's so interesting the comments that French men have made to me about American women and the differences versus French women. And this is not in like a hate way or anything like that, but I honestly can see this in the French women that I've engaged with, is that American women are a lot more enthusiastic and a lot more excitable. We know at a baseline level, men are touch and affection deprived. So American women being excitable and touchy and like happy and enthusiastic, that I think is something that French men are very attracted to at first, because it feels different. It feels new when you come from French women being a little bit more standoffish, a little bit more cold. I've experienced this directly from French women. So it feels a lot of times very refreshing to French men when, you know, we're just a little bit more, I would say, engaged or engaging. I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing. Honestly, I think there's a lot that I can pick up from French women about just not being so enthusiastic, if that makes sense. But I think that has just been a really interesting learning for me on just how different cultures affect the way in which you're dating and the way that men perceive it. In general, French people give very black cat energy. And at the same time, like, cats still love affection. Cats still want attention. Like, do not miss that. But American people give very like golden retriever energy. So watching those two dynamics and even just being in that dynamic yourself is just so interesting. Like, it really is fascinating to me how the different cultures come together through dating. It really is. It feels like a sociological experiment. But yeah, those are my learnings over the past month. I will continue these learnings and report back to y'all soon. Bye.